We're up to the beginning of Chaf Amid Aleph. The Gemara says, Hahu Barucha, there was a goat, the Chaza Lifta Puma Didana, that he saw a turnip on top of a barrel. So he sees the turnip on the top of the barrel. Sarik V'Salik, so he climbs its way to the top of the barrel. And Achal Lifta V'Tarv Ladana, he ate the turnip and in the process destroyed the barrel. So the question is, the turnip is Shane, it's Chai for Shane. The question is breaking the barrel Shane, or actually the more Karen, because he actively broke it. It wasn't, Regal's more in the process of traveling.
Why is it called Shane?
Because it's in the process of eating. It got broken.
Shane is eating.
Shane is eating. So, So Rava felt that he's obligated for the turnip and for the barrel nezek shalim, meaning it's not Karen. My timer. Kivan it's not normal for a goat to break a barrel. Kivan the urcha lamecha lifta, since it's normal for a goat to eat a turnip, urcha nami l'surgavil slikit. It's normal for him to climb up and in the process break it. Meaning breaking a barrel is an act of Karen in general, but over here it's in the process of eating. So it falls under the category of Shane.
But if it's normal, then breaking the barrel gets no hana. The turnip is Shane fine. That's why I said regular.
Well, it could be Shane or regular. You know what? I take it back. It could be Shane or regular. The point is it's not Karen.
Either way, it's full death.
Yeah. The point is it's not Karen. Meaning normally damaging a barrel is Karen. The answer is this damaging was in the process of eating. So that's normal. Okay. Now this next Gemara.
And this is B'shus HaNizek.
Yeah, it would have to be. Now, this next Gemara I have a little bit of a problem. But we'll go through it. It's not complicated. It's just there's one problem that I have. I think it's a machlokes Rishonim, but I'll just go with Rashi's pshat. I'll tell you Rashi's pshat. We'll see what the problem is. Amar Ilfa, behema b'shus harabim. You have an animal b'shus harabim. Poshtet savar v'achal me'agabe chavertzes. You have two horses walking in b'shus harabim. One of the horses on his back has a bag full of food. One horse sticks his head and eats from the bag on the back of the other horse. Now this is Rishus Harabim. Now the rule is Shein Rishus Harabim is potter, so he should be potter. Says the Gemara Chayeves, he's Chayev. Why? Because the seed, the food, is on the back of the horse, and the horse is a chotzer, so it's considered as if he ate from private property. Even though it was in Rishus Harabim, but it's like you put your hand in someone's car. In the car is Rishus HaYachid, within a Rishus Harabim. So it's technically eating within Rishus HaYachid. Even though, again, it was on Main Street, but because he ate from the back of the animal, that's considered Rishus HaYachid. Okay, that's not true. Now let me say, let's bring a proof. The Brayso Mamish says it b'ferish. If an animal has a basket slung over its shoulder, hanging behind him, and an animal stretched out and ate from it, chayev, the animal's chayev. Now this is Rishus Harabim. So why is it chayev? It's Shane. Shane Rishus Harabim is potter. It must be because the basket is on the animal's back. It's considered Rishus HaYachid. So the Gemara says no. No, it could be really. It's considered Rishus Harabim. So why am I chayiv? You're not chayiv for Shane. You're chayiv for Karen. What's Karen? The cases where the animal hopped on the other animal's back, and that's considered an abnormal way of eating, and therefore it's Karen. That's what Rashi says.
Okay, but hold on, but because he's eating in a normal way, so that's called Shane.
No, it's Karen. Kaifetzes, the animal jumped on the other animal, and it's not normal.
It did jump on.
Yes, Kaifetzes, the animal jumped.
Right, so it's not Rishus HaYachid?
The case is it's in Rishus Harabim. The animal ate from the other animal's back. The Gemara says chayiv. Why is it chayiv? Two options. Either because the back of the animal is considered Rishus HaYachid and it's a proof to that teaching. The Gemara says no. Really, the back of the animal is not considered Rishus HaYachid. So why is it chayiv? It's chayiv for Karen. Because it's an abnormal way to eat. Now the issue I'm having with this, just on a personal note, is we just got finished saying that the animal climbing is normal, meaning I find it a bit strange that this is called Karen when the end result is eating. It's just eating in an abnormal way. You see from Rashi that it's not just the end result, it's how it's being done. Meaning if you have an animal that's eating in a weird way, it's hopping on its back legs and just eating. And I don't know, it's like it normally could eat, the food's right here, but it's picking it up and it's juggling, whatever. I would look at that as Shane.
According to Rabbi Art School, they actually say
They bring it out of the bottom. I checked it.
it's unusual for a goat to scale a barrel.
Correct. So they have a whole thing on the bottom, and I checked it right before we came in here. Note 5. They have a whole arichos. The point is, you see from Rashi, and that's what there are other Rishonim that have a different shop. Let's go with Rashi. Rashi, you see from Rashi that he says the difference is, I'll just tell you, the way they interpret Rashi is that the case of the goat with the barrel, it had to climb the barrel to get to the turnip. This, the animal did not have to hop around. The animal could have just ate it normally, but the animal is jumping. But I'm just saying, you see from here, this is an aside, you see from here that it's not just the end result, it's how it's being done. Right. Because at the end of the day, it's still eating, which is a very normal activity. But because it's eating in an abnormal way, it goes from Shane to Karen. My point is just, I would not have thought that. That's my point. Okay. The Gemara continues, where was Rava's source that eating, that jumping, was an abnormal way? Jumping is an abnormal way and considered Karen. Aha. The animal is in Rosh Hashanah, and while it's walking, it's eating. So it's in Rosh Hashanah. Eating in Rosh Hashanah is shein, so it's potter. But if the animal stands still in Rosh Hashanah and eats, it's chayiv. Why is it chayiv? It's still Rosh Hashanah. So says the Gemara, what's the difference? Well, I don't understand. It's in Rosh Hashanah, it's eating, which is shein. So what's the difference between walking and standing? So says the Gemara, the answer is the animal is not standing, the animal's jumping. So because it's eating in an abnormal way, it's Karen. That's what the Gemara says. Okay, fine.
Jumping?
It's jumping. I don't know. It's just jumping up and down to eat the food. It could have just eat there normally standing, but it's hopping up and down to eat the food. So it's eating in an abnormal way, and the Gemara is telling you that eating in an abnormal way is considered Karen. So it's a chiddush.
And the potter, it's potter.
No, Karen is chayiv in Rosh Hashanah. Shane is potter in Rosh Hashanah. Karen is chayiv in Rosh Hashanah.
It's chayiv, but it's only chayiv.
Chatzi nesek, correct. So you'd have to say chayiv, but chatzi nesek, because it's not. Boy, Rav Zera, I have a kasha. Mizgalgal mahu. What if the animal's dragging the food? So I'll give you an example. You have an animal that has a bag of popcorn, okay? And so if it eats in Rosh Hashanah, it's potter, because it's shein. Rosh Hashanah is chayiv. What if the animal takes the bag in Rosh Hashanah, drags it to Rosh Hashanah and eats it? Or vice versa. Do you go by the origin of the food or where it's eating it? That's the Gemara's kasha. Okay, going to Kamma 20a-20b, you have the straw is in Rosh Hashanah, they come as galgal v'asim Rosh Hashanah, and it schleps it to Rosh Hashanah. So do you say that it's potter because it ate in Rosh Hashanah, and do you say it's chayiv because the origin of the food is in Rosh Hashanah, or vice versa? Mahu. So what's the question? So Tashema, the Tani Rav Chia, Masoi miktsasi b'fnim miktsasi mechutz. You have a pieces of long straw, let's say bamboo shoots, as the Gemara is going to say, and it's partially in Rosh Hashanah, partially in Rosh Hashanah. Ochla b'fnim chayeves. If the animal ate it inside, it's chayiv. Ochla b'chutz patura. But if the animal ate it outside, it's patur. Now the Gemara assumes the case is as follows: you have the food. Think of you're in Rosh Hashanah, I'm in Rosh Hashanah. The food is between us. So what did the Mishnah say? The Brisa say if the animal eats in Rosh Hashanah, he's chayiv, and Rosh Hashanah he's patur. What's the case? He's eating in Rosh Hashanah and he's pulling it to himself. So that means a lot of the food started in Rosh Hashanah, but because he's pulling it to himself, and vice versa. If he's in Rosh Hashanah and he's schlepping the food to Rosh Hashanah while he's eating, right? It's like pasta. He's not just pasta, like he's popcorn. He's just he's pulling the bag more. It's potter. You see, it doesn't matter where the food is. It matters where the food ends up. That's what you see. So the Gemara has two answers. Answer number one is that who says the animal's moving the food at all? Maybe the case is long spaghetti. He stands in Rosh Hashanah. I'm in Rosh Hashanah, you're in Rosh Hashanah. This is the border. He stands in Rosh Hashanah and eats. What he eats is a chayiv. And then he goes into Rosh Hashanah. What he eats is potter. Who says the food's moving at all? We're looking for a case where the food is moving, and you're assuming he's dragging from one place to the other. Who said he's chayiv for what he ate for the food that was currently in Rosh Hashanah, and then he runs around, goes to Rosh Hashanah, and eats that? Who says the food moves at all? Or secondly, or could be that case is different. You see, there's a big difference between bamboo shoots and popcorn. That's why I pick popcorn. Why? Because when I take popcorn, right, I'm in Rosh Hashanah and I'm dragging popcorn to Rosh Hashanah. Most of the popcorn was entirely in Rosh Hashanah, and now it's being moved entirely to Rosh Hashanah. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for a case where the food is entirely changing domains. The case of Rav Chia, where it goes by where he eats, not where it originated, is by bamboo shoots, which they're in both domains. So that's not as clear, because if I have something like a really long spaghetti, starts in Rosh Hashanah, goes to Rosh Hashanah, and I eat it, you say, you see a chayiv because you ate in Rosh Hashanah, even though it's being dragged after Rosh Hashanah. But it's one item that was partially in here, partially out. That's not the same as you have items like small kernels of popcorn where 90% of the popcorn was in Rosh Hashanah, and I schlep it to Rosh Hashanah. That's a complete domain change. So there is a difference. That the Gemara says there's a difference.
The idea that if you eat Rishus HaYachid, Yechai, or Rishus HaRabim, Yechai, that is halacha Moshe.
No, it's a pasuk. Bir b'stei acher. Stay acher.
But it's a concept. It's not a svar.
I don't know. No, I don't think it's. I don't. Well, it depends. It depends because there might be a svara for Rosh Hashanah, but now when it's a communal backyard would also be pater. So
The case of popcorn isn't really.
I'm saying it's more of a pasuk.
Popcorn isn't so good because when you're moving the popcorn, you're moving the whole entity.
No. So my point is. So forget about popcorn down a bag. He's just schlepping. My point is, it's kernels that are being moved entirely from one domain to the other. Rav Chia's case is where it's long bamboo shoots, so it's partially in, partially out. It's in both domains, so it's not as much of a change. Okay. Now, this next point I want to make clear. Look at the Mishnah. I'm going to read you the Mishnah. And I'll read you the next line. You'll see there's two ways to understand it. The Mishnah says, it's talking about eating. So it says, Achla. I'm sorry. If an animal eats fruits or vegetables, it's chayiv for shein. Then the Mishnah said, if let's say the animal instead of eating food eats clothing, so then it's not shein, that's abnormal, that's keren. Mishalin chatzi nezek, yeah? So far so good. Then the Mishnah said the following line. When is this true? B'rshus hanizik of b'rshus harabim potter. But if that happens in b'rshus harabim, it's potter. Now there's two ways to look at that line. The most simple way to read that Mishnah is as follows: the animal eats apples is chayiv because it's shein. If it eats plastic table, it's keren because it's abnormal. When is shein chayiv in Rosh Hashanah? But if it eats it in Rosh Hashanah, but if it eats in Rosh Hashanah, it's potter. But what if the animal were to eat a table in Rosh Hashanah? Chayiv. Keren in Rosh Hashanah is the difference. But there's another way to read the Mishnah, and that is, if the animal eats apples, is chayiv. Keren Rosh Hashanah is chayiv. Keren, there's no difference. It's only shein v'regel. The animal eats apples, is shein. The animal eats a table, it's keren. When is this chayiv, Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah, it's potter even on the keren? Meaning, there's a possibility to read the Mishnah that when the animal eats something abnormal and it's keren, it's still potter in Rosh Hashanah. Now, why would that be? We'll explain. But there's two ways to look at it, because the Mishnah just says, shein, keren, Rosh Hashanah, chayiv, Rosh Hashanah, potter. So I could look at it as Rosh Hashanah potter on the shein, but on the keren it's chayiv. Or no, Rosh Hashanah is potter on both. And for some reason, if an animal eats something abnormal in Rosh Hashanah, it's also potter. Even though keren is chayiv in Rosh Hashanah, you could read the Mishnah that if the animal eats something abnormal, which is keren, it's potter in Rosh Hashanah. Now why? Explain in a moment. The Gemara says,
The whole Rosh Hashanah is a potter area.
But not for keren.
Not for eating. Maybe this is a hybrid.
No, but it's still keren. It's keren is keren. So the Gemara says, ahai. Which case? Rav akulu. Rav says akulu, meaning Rav holds that if an animal eats something abnormal in Rosh Hashanah, he's potter. Why? So my timer, kol hameshane uba acher v'shina ba potter. You want to know why Rav says? A very interesting shita. If you do something abnormal and then my animal does something abnormal to your abnormality, I'm potter. Meaning, what's the case? My animal is eating a light bulb in Rosh Hashanah. So it's keren, because it's a light bulb, it's not normal to eat. Says Rav, potter. Why? The answer is, why are you leaving a light bulb in Rosh Hashanah? You did something abnormal by leaving that item in Rosh Hashanah, and then my animal said, hold my beer, and then it did something even more abnormal. The answer is, abnormal against abnormal is potter. So keren in Rosh Hashanah, the classic case is my animal just gores. There's no abnormality. He didn't do anything wrong, just walking there. But over here, because you left the thing there, which is abnormal, and then my animals did something abnormal to that abnormality, Rav feels is potter. That's Rav Shita. The Gemara says Shmuel disagrees. He says no, lo yishanu l'peres yirakas k'suv v'keil chayavis. Shmuel says no. The potter in Rosh Hashanah is for eating the apples. Eating the light bulb is chayav in Rosh Hashanah because it's Karen. So it's machlekes Rav and Shmuel.
You did something normal. Just because you did something abnormal, the animal did something normal, you're chayav.
Correct. It's very strange, but he's saying this call him shaina umshana ba, meaning I guess it's like what do you want me to do? Like I shouldn't expect that. I guess I don't know. I'm not sure exactly.
If you do something normal, you shouldn't leave apples in Rosh Hashanah unattended.
Apples might be normal though.
So they explain at the bottom, the Chazon Ish, the rationale of the principle that if I did something, you did something abnormal, and my animal did something abnormal on potter, is that the Torah does not require the damage to pay, since we consider as if the injured party had brought the damages upon himself by acting irregular. And you do something strange, expect strange to come in. You ask for strange, you're going to get strange.
Apples, you might be chayav.
No, apples you're going to be potter because it's shame. You left light bulbs there. My animal ate the light bulbs. I'm also potter. Why? It's Karen. The answer is, what are you doing leaving light bulbs there? You're bringing problems onto yourself.
Right.
Okay. So the Gemara says, "V'chein amar Reish Lakish akulu." Reish Lakish also said a similar concept. V'az Reish Lakish shatamei, and Reish Lakish follows his shita. Dam Reish Lakish follows this shita that if you do something abnormal and I respond with an abnormal thing, I'm potter. So the light bulbs he'd be into. Why? Dam Reish Lakish. He said a similar concept. Shtei pares b'shus haram. You have two oxen walking in Rosh Hashanah. Achas revutza v'achas malachas. One animal is just sitting there. It's not normal, for the record, for oxen to just sit. They don't just sit. But one animal just sits there. The other animal is walking. So what does the animal do? Animals do not just to squat. No. Animals do just squat. They're not using the bathroom. No. They lie down, but just to sit. It's like a dog just sitting there. But an ox, no, it's not a normal thing to do. So you have these two walking. So one's walking, one's squatting. Bota mahalechas bervutza. If the walker kicks the squatter, it's potter. Why? Because you're doing something strange. Kicking is Karen. So I should be chayiv. The answer is, what is your animal doing squatting there? Your animal doing something strange, so my animal responded with something strange, it's potter. But revutza malech is chayiv. But if the animal that's squatting kicks the animal walking, he's chayiv. Because the animal walking didn't do anything strange. So you see, this is a raya Reish Lakish has to the concept with the light bulb. That as long as one does something strange, the other one responds with strange, it's potter. The Gemara says, Rav Yochanan disagrees. He says, no, loishon peres v'yarakas aksus v'kem chayavis. Rav Yochanan, back in the original question, Rav Yochanan feels that if I left a light bulb in Rosh Hashanah and then your animal ate it, your animal is chayiv. Now, just a quick question. There's two cases of strange. We seem to be the same. One is your animal, you leave a light bulb in Rosh Hashanah, my animal eats it. Rav Yochanan says, chayiv. Right, chayiv. Even though you did something strange, my animal's chayiv. Then you have Reish Lakish's case, one animal squatting, and the other animal kicks it. Reish Lakish is potter. Why? Because what is the animal doing squatting? The question is, so Rav Yochanan said about the light bulb case that if you leave a light bulb and my animal eats it, it's chayiv. We assume the reason why he's chayiv is because he doesn't believe in this whole concept. Rav Yochanan doesn't believe in this whole strange plus strange equals potter. The Gemara says, Leimer Rav Yochanan leslie de Reish Lakish hafilu b'shtei paris. Does Rav Yochanan disagree with the whole premise? The answer is loy. Loy l'mislei ksus avdi inshi demanchi glimu b'ftachi av behem lavuchi. The answer is Rav Yochanan believes in the concept. He just doesn't believe it's so strange to leave a light bulb in Rosh Hashanah. Rav Yochanan is into it. Rav Yochanan, in the case of the squatting animals, Rav Yochanan is into strange plus strange equals potter. So why by the light bulb case does he say chayiv? Because he says, why is it so strange for me to leave something on Main Street? I know I'm going there anyway, so I left it there. It's such a strange thing. I left a box on Main Street, not in the place where people can walk on, whatever, in a way that it won't stumble people. I don't think, Rav Yochanan is into the strange halacha, he just doesn't think it's so strange. Okay. Weiter in the Gemara. Now, next concept. The Mishnah said, let's say my animal eats in Rosh Hashanah, so you say potter, but you're still chayiv to pay something. You pay mishalemes mashanenes. You pay what the animal benefited from.
What are they eating?
What do you mean?
Rosh Hashanah, what's the things growing over there?
No, you left something there.
So somebody leaves something there.
You're walking from Main Street, and you have wasamins, you have a bag of apples, you just put down for a second, and my animal chops it up.
Okay.
The question is, so the Mishnah said, you don't pay for the apples, but you pay mashanenis, you pay what you benefited. What does that mean? I don't pay for the apples, but I pay what I benefited. So the Gemara says, the Kamma, and how much do you pay for that? Rabbi Omer Dmei Omer. Rabbi says you pay the value of straw. Let's say my animal ate steak, very, very high-end steaks. I don't pay for the steaks, but I pay for the fact that my animal's not hungry, meaning I would pay, how much would it cost for me to pay to feed my animal straw, the cheapest food? So that you have to pay. Okay. Rabbi Amar Dmei Sarim Bezul. Rabbi says, no, we don't go straw. Straw is super cheap. Go barley, which was a high-end food for animals, if you would buy it cheap. Meaning, you go over to someone and you say, listen, your animal ate super high-end food, the best barley on the market. I'm potter because it's Rosh Hashanah. I understand your potter. So Rabbi says, just pay straw. The value straw. Rabbi's like,
Why should you pay anything?
no, because you still got benefited from it. I still benefited from your thing. Maybe I'm not going to pay for the hezek, but I still benefited from it.
So
You're potter from the hezek, but you still have to pay the hana. The point is, though, so what do you have to pay? So Rabbi says you pay straw. Rabbi says, no, don't pay straw. Pay barley on a discount. If you go to the average farmer, you say, listen, would you feed your animal barley? They'll be like, yeah, in a perfect world, I'm not paying for it. What if I can get you 40% off? Yeah. So you pick an amount of a discount that the average farmer would be willing to spend. That's what you pay. Okay, fine. So it's a machloikes. Tanya kavase de Rabba, Tanya kavase de Rabba.
We here assuming that barley is worth more than straw.
Barley, according to Rashi, was like the highest end thing that you could feed an animal.
Oh.
So Tanya kavase de Rabba, Tanya kavase de Rabba. We have brayso that support both. Tanya kavase de Rabba, we have brayso that supports Rabba that you pay straw. Rav Shimba Yochai says you pay for the value of straw. Okay, meaning regardless of what it ate, you pay for the value of a meal of straw. Tani kavase de Rava. We have a brayso that backs up Rava. Imnenis mishlemis mashenenis ketzad. The brayso says, what does the owner pay? If the animal ate a calf or two calves, I don't have to pay for that value of what it ate. You figure out how much would an owner pay to feed his animal the highest end thing, barley, not at regular market price because he's not willing to pay that. But you figure out how much would a farmer pay. If it's a 60% off, would he pay? Yeah, he'd spend if it was 60% off. That's what you pay. Okay. Similarly, if the animal ate something that was bad for her, if the animal ate something, according to this opinion, you figure out like how much the market value, and then you do like a discount. If the animal ate something that's like poison, obviously I don't have to pay my animal because I didn't benefit. I'm not paying for the hezek. The question is, do I pay for the benefit? There's no benefit. My animal's now sick from this. So yeah, you put. Okay. Now, new sugya until the end of the daf. This from my days in yeshiva. There's a very famous sugya. This is called Zenen of Zeloi Chaser. This is the famous Zenen of Zeloi Chaser. You have a situation where one person benefits from the other and the other person doesn't lose. Zenen of Zeloi Chaser. Do I have to pay for such an arrangement? And we'll see what this has to do with our Mishnah. The Gemara says, Rav Chizda said, you weren't with us this past Shabbos. You missed a good shaila in yeshiva. What's the shaila? Not turning yet. What's the shaila that they asked? I squat. Adam has an extra apartment that he's not using. I squat in the apartment. I stay in the apartment. The question is, do I have to pay? That was the question. Do I have to pay rental fee if I'm squatting in his apartment? So the question is, without his knowledge, by the way, the question is, again, back then they had a different, they didn't mind as much if it wasn't going to be used. So the question is, what exactly is the scenario? Hey Chidami, what's the case? Now, okay, there's two scenarios. You could have a scenario, again, Adam has an extra apartment that I'm staying in. There could be multiple cases. Now, does Adam plan on renting it out? If he plans on renting it out, then it's zechaser. I'm stealing his ability to rent it out. If he's not going to rent it out, let's say he's not going to rent it out, and I don't pay for rent because I have multiple houses available, right? Let's say I'm not homeless. I have another place to live for free. So he's not expecting any rent anyway. I wouldn't pay anyway. So it's zelo chaser zelo nen. I'm not really benefiting. What am I benefiting from? A free place? I have free places options. So that can't be the case. If it's a place that he doesn't expect to pay rent, he wasn't going to rent out, and I'm not going to pay rent anyway because I got a couple other options. I got a free place to stay anyway. So then zela nena v'zelo chaser. He's not losing because he wasn't going to rent it out anyway. I'm lo nena. I'm not really benefiting because I have a free place anyway. That can't be the shayla. The opposite also can't be. Let's say it's a case where Adamic wants to rent it out, and I'm willing to pay, but I'm staying for free. So that's zenena v'zechoser. I'm stealing his ability. I'm hurting him. That can't be a shayla either. Of course I have to pay for that. Zenena v'zechoser. Leitzricha b'chotzer delay kaimel la'agra v'gavadol l'megar. The case is as follows. The case is Adam is not expecting to rent it out, but I'm willing to pay rent, meaning I'm homeless. I need a place. The question is, do I have to pay? So it's zenena, I'm benefiting, v'zelo chaser, but he's not losing because he wasn't going to rent it out anyway. So zenena, v'zelo chaser, do you have to pay? So the Gemara says, can the squatter say to the owner, what does it matter to you anyway? You weren't going to rent it out anyway. It was staying vacant. What does it care? On my block, there's a house that for the last, I think it's like 17 years, it has not been, it's a fully detached house. There hasn't been a person in it in 17 years. I don't know how wealthy you have to be to have a house in Kew Garden Hills and not use it. So if someone were to break in there, and the guy doesn't even know that he owns it. So it's zenana, the guy's benefit, zelo chaser. So can the squatter say to the owner, what do you care anyway? You were using it. Oy Dilmer, perhaps Matziyam, they go to the next page. Or perhaps the owner can say, well, you're benefiting from it, you got to pay. So that's the question. It's zenana v'zelo chaser, and that's what we're going to be dealing with the rest of today's daf of zenana v'zelo chaser. So Amrle Masisanhi. So Rav Chizda said to Rami Bar Chama, it's mamish mefurish in our Mishnah. First of all, even if you guys would think, you're not going to think of it. So he says, it's mefurish in our Mishnah. So he says, hi Masisa, which Mishnah? Amrle L'chit Tishamishli. He says, do something for me. You got to work for it. You want Torah, you got to work for it. So Shakal Sujah Karachle, so he folded his coats, whatever. You know what the Mefurish on Mishnah? My animal eats your food in Rosh Hashanah. I don't pay for the food, but I pay for what I benefited. Oh, it's zenena v'zelo chaser. I benefited from the food, and you didn't lose anything. That's what he said.
That's strong.
Yeah.
High value, no?
Huh?
The high value of the food.
No, but I'll tell you what he said. He's looking for zenena v'zelo chaser, and he says Mefurish on Mishnah. Why? My animal eats your food in Rosh Hashanah. I have to pay for the benefit. I'm zenana, I'm benefiting from my animal ate. V'zelo chaser, you didn't lose anything. Huh?
Because you're paying for the food?
No, you didn't lose anything because what'd you lose?
The food.
It's a good kasha. Okay, it's a good kasha. Fine. But he said, it's an example of zenana v'zelo chaser. One person is benefiting, one person is not losing. Because the person in Rosh Hashanah, what is he losing? Food. Put that shayla aside. Okay, but that's what he said to him. So the Gemara says, Amar Rava, Rava said, how choshev is it for a person that just accepts what his Rebbe says without asking why? It's no shaykhis to our Mishnah, but he just said, thank you, Rebbe. So it's like shows you.
So he's positive or negative on this?
Well, Rav is saying I don't see how it comes from our Mishnah, but I'm impressed that he just said thank you, Rebbe.
I'd say so. He's positive about the person who accepts what the Rebbe says.
Yeah. He's positive. He's just saying I don't see what he says. No, he said Baruch Hashem. You have such a munas chachamim. I don't see shaykhis b'chlal. Why? He says zenana v'zeh chaser. That's not zenana v'zeh chaser. My animal's nana, and you don't lose anything. You lost food. That's l'chaser. The Gemara says, so where is Rabbi Bar Chama coming from? Rabbi Bar Chama saver stam peres b'shus harab mafkurim mafkalu. Rava felt that the average person that puts food down in Rosh Hashanah is mafker.
So then it's not hezek at all.
So that's his point was it's zenana v'zel chaser, and you still have to pay. Meaning I didn't lose anything because I wasn't planning. I was like already mafker.
It's not yours.
It's a good shiloh.
If you're mafker food Main Street, you have to pay hezek or like even if you eat.
Now, so Taisus says the Taisus of here. So Taisus is bothered by Yakasha. Taisus is saying, well, if it's actually hefker, then it's not who you paying.
Right.
So Taisus says it doesn't actually mean that it's actually hefker. It just means that the person doesn't think he's going to get full value for it. Like you put it down, you know there's a chance you're like, I'm probably not going to get full value. So like meaning basically the owner is like cool with just getting that nena value. It's like what you said. He's not losing out, so it's zen nena v'zeloi chaser. Okay. Yeah, so it was, what's Taisus' Lashon? Taisus' Lashon is Afkuri mafker. Loi legamri. Right? Taisus doesn't mean that he's actually mafker. The im kein afilu mashenenes lim sham. You wouldn't be pay at all. El miyayish mem shesav sheyikalkul mach masharabim darsim aleim ashel yavu l'dmei mashenenes. You know that when you put it down in Rosh Hashanah, you are not going to get full market value. So that's out. So I didn't really lose much anyway, because I knew I wouldn't get market value anyway. So it's zen nana, the animal's benefit, and I didn't lose, and he still have to pay. I don't know. It's still a stretch, because if I didn't get paid at all, I'm chaser that. I don't know. Okay, let's go weiter. We're looking for the discussion of zen nana v'zelei chaser. So article has a picture, but it's pretty obvious. Think of it as almost a cross minus the bottom. So you have Shimon. Reuven and Shimon are neighbors. Reuven surrounds Shimon on three sides. Rashi's picture? In my Gemara, I didn't have a picture. Oh, that, yeah. Yeah, okay, good. So Reuven surrounds Shimon on three sides. Okay, so here's the case. Tanan, hamakiv chaver m'shleisha ruchaisav. So Reuven's on the outside and Shimon's on the inside. So Reuven surrounds Shimon on three sides. And he puts up a fence between his domain and Shimon's domain on three sides. The inner fence he builds. Now, by the way, Shimon's very happy with this because he gets a fence. His area is being fenced in. It's good to have your area fenced in. Okay, but it's only on three sides. So says the Gemara, Ein machayav anoisai. Reuven cannot say to Shimon, pay me for the value of the fence. Why? You're benefiting. Shimon's like, I'm not benefiting because one side of my field is completely exposed, right? So he's not really benefiting at all from these three sides, because what does a fence on three sides do if there's a complete breach on the fourth side? Nothing. But haravius machayev anoisai, you could deduce from this that if Reuven had built the wall on all four sides, let's say Reuven owned below Shimon as well, and he mamish fenced him in on all four sides. Now Reuven's doing it for himself. But Shimon benefits from this, and now his field is protected. He could ask Shimon to pay for it. Now wait a minute. That's zenana. Shimon is benefiting. V'zelo chaser. Reuven's not losing anyway. He was going to put up the fence anyway. Reuven put up the fence. Look at the picture. Reuven put up the fence around Shimon's domain for his own reasons, selfish reasons. If he surrounds it on all four sides, he could ask Shimon to pay for it. Why? Shimon doesn't lose. Reuven was going to build the fence anyway. But Shimon benefited. Zenena v'zelo chaser chayiv. So he says, shmami not zenena v'zelo chaser chayiv. The fact that Shimon has to pay, even though Reuven would make the exact same fence without Shimon. So the fact that he has to pay means why? Because Shimon benefited. You benefit, you pay. Even though this construction was going to happen with or without him. It's like Gemara says, no, it wouldn't. I'll tell you why. Reuven is actually losing because of Shimon. If there was no Shimon, he would not have to make this whole complicated fence work. If Shimon didn't exist, he could just use the outer fence. The fact that he even... the Gemara's point is, he was going to make this fence with or without Shimon. No. Without Shimon, the outer fence of Reuven's property would suffice. The fact that he needs to make an inner fencing is only because of Shimon. So it's Zen Nana, Shimon's betting, V'zech Choser. Reuven's actually losing money because of Shimon, because he's got to build a lot more fence work to make up for the property that Shimon's in the middle of. So the Gemara says, "Shani Hosam Amali At Garam to me." Reuven could say to Shimon, "No, I'm not paying because Zen and V'zeh Chaser. Zen and V'zeh Chaser." Let's keep going. Tashema, Rav Yossi then said on that Mishnah. Now I looked up the Sugim Baba Basra. It's a Sugim Baba Basra. I think it's Abdalad. It's a whole machlokes to understand the subtleties between Rav Yossi and the Rav Shimon. It's a very similar shita. Rav Yossi said as follows. Im amanik if it got this Ravius. Let's say Reuven does the first three sides on the outside. So we said if he just does three sides, he can't ask Shimon to pay because Shimon's bottom part of his field is exposed. Let's say Shimon then builds the bottom field, the bottom fence himself. So Reuven does the top three, and then Shimon on his own does the bottom one. Then Shimon has to pay for all four. He has to mishtatef in all four. Why? Because he shows that he's into it. The fact that he built the bottom one is his way of saying, thank you for the top three. Says the Mishnah, time of the good.
What if it's the opposite? What if he had one and the other three were built afterwards? Same thing?
Oh, so the Gemara says it. Time at the Godar Nikav, it's Mamash's Gemara.
But Reuven would have to maybe contribute for the bottom fence too.
Yeah. Oh, that I don't know. That's a sugin babas. I'm not sure. Time the gader nikif hamakif potter. That implies what you said, and that is that you only have to pay because Shimon did the bottom fence. But if Reuven had done the entire fence without Shimon's involvement, you'd be potter according to Rav Yossi, not like what we just saw. So what do you see? Why are you potter? Because then
No, that's not my question.
I know. So your
My
case, I don't know.
question is-
I know. But I know
okay.
it's Baba Basa. I don't know. So the Gemara says Zed Nenev Zelo Chaser is potter. The implication is that in the case where, again, according to Rav Yossi, if Shimon builds the bottom fence, it's Zed Nenev Zelo Chaser and it's potter. Shimon doesn't have to pay. If Reuven builds the bottom fence, Shimon does not have to pay. It's Zed Nenev Zelo Chaser. It's potter. So the Gemara says no. Shani Hasan Damalei Lididi Sagile Benatira Barzuza. You want to know why Shimon doesn't have to pay? Because Shimon says, listen, what's the reason why Shimon is benefiting from the fence. Reuven's not losing because he was going to build the fence anyway. And you see, Shimon is potter. Zanena v'zelo chaser is potter. You want to know why he's potter? Because Shimon could say, I didn't want such a fancy fence. Right? Reuven comes into me saying, like, you have to pay me for the fence. And Shimon says, why? He says, because you're benefiting. And Shimon says, yeah, but you would make the fence anyway. Yeah, but zanena v'zelo chaser, potter. The answer is, in general, maybe zanena v'zelo chaser is chayiv. Why over here is a potter? Because Shimon could say, you didn't ask me. I wouldn't have made such a fancy fence. I would have taken some rocks and some barbed wire, cost me $10. I would have put it up. Meaning, in the case where it's zanena v'zelo chaser, but it's sort of the value is fixed. Construction is not like that. I build we share a wall. I build the most expensive wall on the market. It's like, you have to pay. You'd be like, dude, I wouldn't have made such a fancy fence. That's why it's not a fair assessment. That's not comparable to other cases of Zen and of Zelachasa. Or maybe in general, Zen and of Zelachasa is chayiv. Why would the Shimon not pay? Because Shimon could say, hey, I wouldn't have made such a fancy fence. You make a cheaper fence, then yeah, I'm in. I wouldn't have made such a fence. You're hurting me. I wouldn't have made such an expensive fence. Tashima, the Gemara says, Habayis v'aliyah shel shnayim shenaflu. Okay, you have Reuven and Shimon are tenants. Reuven owns the bottom floor, and Shimon owns the top floor. Oh, yeah, okay. Reuven owns the bottom floor, and Shimon owns the top floor. Okay, house falls. So Shimon says to Reuven, "Can you please build a bottom floor? I can't build the top floor without you building the bottom floor." Reuven says, "No, I don't want to." So here's the halacha: Halila balabayis, Amar balabayis, Amar balalila balabayis. Livna is winner, right? So again, Shimon owns the top floor, Reuven owns the bottom floor. Shimon said, "Listen, we're rebuilding the house. I'd like you to pay for half of it. You pay for the bottom floor, but you don't want to rebuild it the way it was." Reuven's like, "No, I don't want to." So you know what he does? The halacha is Hari bala aliyah bayna bayis. Shimon builds 2 floors and stays in the bottom floor until Reuven wants to come back. And once Reuven wants to pay his half, then he'll go to the top floor. Okay, that's the halacha. Fine.
But it's not his property.
What do you mean?
Well, paid for it.
Yeah, he built the bottom floor, and he's allowed to stay in the bottom floor until Reuven comes. Then he'll go to the top floor, and Reuven will pay.
What happens if he never wants to come back?
That I don't know. That's an interesting point. But here's the Gemara's point here. What's the shaykhs over here? Shimon, who stayed on the bottom floor, does not pay Reuven rent. He pays. Reuven has to pay. He accepts payment for the building. He does not pay Reuven rent, right? But think about it. He was in Reuven's property for those 6 months. He does not pay rent. Why? Because zenena v'zelo chaser. What does Reuven care? He didn't even want the building at all. So you see, zenena v'zelo chaser is potter because Reuven doesn't. Shimon, who's been staying in Reuven's house, doesn't have to pay rent. So the Gemara says, "Yitzi yisudim mechayvle balabayis hascharei loy." Over there, he pays the expense, but he doesn't. The rent is not deducted. Shimon does not pay rent. Why? It's zenena v'zelo chaser potter. It's zenena v'zelo chaser. He said, Shimon said, "What do you care? Who stays in your house? I built it, man. You weren't even going to stay here anyway." So what's the halacha? So that's a source that Zen and Vizil Chaser is potter. The answer is no. Shani Hasam de Beisal Ali Mashtabit. That's not a good case. Why? Zen and Vizil Chaser is not usually involving a case where one person has a monetary claim against the other one. Shimon has a claim against Reuven, forcing him to build a house. The reason why Shimon doesn't have to pay, it's not like Zen and V'zel Chaser is a standard case. I break into your house and I squat. You don't know me, I don't know you. You don't care because you weren't going to rent it out anyway. I'm benefiting. That's a shaila. Over here, Shimon has a taina. He could take Reuven to court. So it's a different. It's not the reason why we allow him to stay rent free and we don't have a taina. We don't force him is because Reuven was wrong in this case. Reuven is required, according to law. Again, I'm not holding in these sugyas, to rebuild his section of the house that they shared. So it's not a fair assessment regarding other cases. That's why Shimon doesn't have to pay rent. Here's the Gemara's opposite view. Tashima, Rav Yehuda disagrees. Rav Yehuda actually feels that Shimon has to pay rent. It's zenen of zel ochas. You see, it's chayiv. Rav Yehuda oimer av zeh dar b'chatz chaver shlami daita. Yitzarich la'al yisaschar. Shma mina zenen of zel ochas chayiv. Let's go to the Rav Yehuda shita. Again, Shimon rebuilds the house, the 2 floors. Shimon stays in the first floor until Reuven's ready to move in. Reuven pays for his half of the house, and then Shimon has to pay rent. Why? What does Reuven care? It's Zenan of Zelachas. You see Zenan of Zelachas Chayiv. The answer is no. It's not Zenan of Zelachas. Shani Hasam Shem Shchirusa Dashyasa. Let me ask you a question, right? You just built a house, yeah? A brand new house in Queens, brand new, stunning. Someone broke in and lived there for 6 months. You know what the house looks like? It's not brand new anymore. And back then they used to cook inside the dining room. It would make the walls. It does not have a new car smell. It would make the walls blackened. The reason why he has to pay in that case, it's not because it's not Zenan of Zelachos, it's Zenan of Zechaser. He built a brand new house. He wanted it to be brand new. It's not like the house has been around for 20 years. It's broken anyway. This guy's bought a brand new house and he's like, you broke in and you stayed there. Shimon stayed there. You have to pay. It's not an example of Zenan of Zelachos. I'll just finish up the daf. Shalchua Be Rav Ami. They sent the question to Rav Ami. Again, the question is, I break into your house and I squat, do I have to pay? Zenan of Zelachos. Amar v'chima asaloi uma chasle ma hezek. He said, what do you have to pay for? What does he care? Zenan of Zelachos is potter. That was his opinion. Rav Chia bar Abba Amar Nisyasha v'dab. Rav Chia bar Abba says, I'm not sure. They keep on asking Rav Chia bar Abba the same thing. Rav Chia bar Abba is not sure. He says, I'm not sure. Maybe chayiv. Not sure. Maybe chayiv.
The land can't be the same if people are sleeping on it. It ruins things.
And now when the house is like older and broken, like you're dealing with think of like in the tenants in like a really slum area.
You have to pay it like a little. You'd see it's like something like a minimal amount.
You might have to pay like that. That I'm not sure. But the question is, do you have to pay full value? That I'm not sure. I'll have to check. The point is, so Rav Chia bar Abba again. Rav Ami felt Zenan V'Zeli Chos is potter. Rav Chia bar Abba kept on saying the same thing. I'm not sure. Maybe chayiv. I'm not sure. They keep on sending it to Mamer. Kuli hay shalchav azay. He says, what do you keep on asking me for? If I think of something, I'll let you know. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't have a source. Okay. Itmar Rav Kahana Rav Yochanan Tzarach Lalus L'Schar. Rav Kahana said Rav Yochanan that you'd have to pay rent because Zenan of Zelachos is chayiv. Rav Avo Rav Yochanan Tzarach Lalus L'Schar. I'm sorry. Rav Kahana Einay Tzarach Lalus L'Schar. Rav Kahana says the name of Rav Yochanan you don't have to pay rent. Zenan of Zelachos is potter. Rav Avo Rav Yochanan Tzarach Lalus L'Schar. Rav Avo says you have to pay. Zenan of Zelachos is chayiv. It's machlokes of what Rav Yochanan said.
Why is it? The surah is chayiv is because
he's benefiting. You have to pay for what you benefit from someone. You benefit from another person. That's a service. You have to pay. So the Gemara says, Rav Papa, Hadar Rav Avo. Rav Papa just clarified that when Rav Avo said that you have to pay rent, Zenan of Zelachos is chayiv, la b'ferishit ma'al. He never heard it from Rav Yochanan directly. He deduced it from a case. He actually never heard it directly. And anytime you don't hear something directly, there's room for misinterpretation. So when he heard Rav Yochanan say that you have to pay, that Zenan of Zelachos is chayiv, he didn't hear beferish. He heard it from a case, and you're going to see the case is not so pasha. What was the case? Ditzanan. Notal even a kairish hegdish. Now, very quickly, mamish 2 minutes just to finish up the daf. We know that there's a concept called mi'ila. Mi'ila means benefiting from the Beis HaMikdash. Now, if I could do mi'ila very easily. I go into the Beis HaMikdash, I take property from the Beis HaMikdash, I pick it up and have in mind to keep it. Boom, that's enough to be mile. The problem is, what if you're a gizbar? You're a treasurer of the Beis HaMikdash. It's much harder, because what are you going to do? You put it in your car? You always put it in your car. Meaning, normally, if I just take it and put it in my car, that's already an act of mi'ila, because what are you doing taking hegdish, putting it in your car? The problem is, if you're the gabbai of the Beis HaMikdash, it's a lot harder, because you got to do more than that because the things that you do every day, you're allowed to. You understand? So the Mishnah says like this: I'm sorry, not 11 a kershel hegdish. If the temple treasurer, the Beis Hamikdash Gizbar, puts it in his car, that's not going to be an act of milah because he does that all the time. He's allowed to do that. Okay, nasl chaver. But if he gives it to someone else and he says you can keep it, that you can't do. That's already an act of milah because what are you doing then? Okay, humal b'chaver lemal. Banal techbei. So let's say he takes a brick from the Beis Hamikdash and he puts it into his house. He uses it as building the house. It's only mi'ilah when he benefits from it. So he sits under it, he benefits from it. V'amar Shmuel, what is the example? The case is, why do you have to benefit from it? Just building into your house should be enough of an act of mi'ilah. The case is like, fellas, you could take a brick and put it with like cement. Of course that's an act of mi'ilah. Here's the case. He had like a window that was open. So he just took a piece of plexiglass that belonged to the basement and just rested it on top. That's not an act of me'ilah because you didn't do anything to the item yet. That you're just resting it. It happens to be. It's covering up a hole. So if you sit under it, then it's an act of me'ilah. Oh, so Ravavo said in the name of Kamma 20a-20b, Ravavo in front of Yochanan said the following thing. That's Zen en of Izel Chaser. Why? You're benefiting from me'ilah. Does the me'ilah lose out? Think about it. You're taking a piece of plexiglass. I'm putting it on top of a hole in my house. I'm benefiting from the plexiglass. The plexiglass is at lo chaser. The Beis Hamikdash is not losing.
Well, eventually they will. I mean, you're supposed to use a plexiglass for...
Well, so the Gemara says, this, you see from here that if I live in your field without your knowledge, you have to pay. Because the Gemara says, I'm using it without God's knowledge, and he's not really losing, so it's the same thing. Meaning using Hashem's plexiglass, which is considered an act of me'ilah, is the same as breaking into your house, and it's then of Zelo Chaser. Now, Rabbi Yochanan never responded. He just listened. So he thought he was listening because he accepted that as a good taina. So, V'shasakle, Rabbi Yochanan just listened. So Ravavo thought, even some of the Shasik Moidele, Ravavo thought, Rabbi Yochanan didn't object to me. You see, he agrees with me. Zenan of Zelo Chaser Chayiv. The truth is, loihi. No, he didn't respond because it was so obviously wrong to him. What's the comparison? I break into your house and I use your house without your knowledge is the same as me'ilah, using without God's knowledge. There's no God's knowledge. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Yedei HaKol. Therefore, it's considered an act of theft. It's different. You see, if a person hears about it, he doesn't know about it, then when he finds out, if he doesn't object, it's one thing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is different. He knows the whole time. And he's not going to verbally object. Hashem doesn't act that way. Therefore, you cannot compare. In other words, Rav Yochanan was quiet. He thought Rav Yochanan accepted the taina. Rav Yochanan was quiet because he thought it was so ridiculous. You don't compare me'ilah to break into someone's backyard without his knowledge. Me'ilah is also without Hashem's knowledge, and you're chayiv. Answers, settle down. The Gemara says, Kidarabba, Dam Rabba, Hegdish Shaloi Midas is Kehedi Midas Nami. There's no such thing as Hegdish Shaloi Midas. It's theft. It's not Hegdish Shaloi Midas. There's no such thing as Hegdish Shaloi Midas. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, don't do me'ilah, that's Hashem's way of saying, don't use my stuff. Oh, he doesn't know about it. He won't care. He knows. So the point is, it's not a good taina, it's not a good source. This was